The fluorescent lights of Sterling Global Industries hummed softly as Emma Torres made her way down the executive corridor carrying a stack of quarterly financial reports. It was nearly 7 in the evening and most employees had already gone home, but Emma had stayed late to finish the analysis Jonathan Blake had requested that morning. She had been working as his executive assistant for 18 months now, and she prided herself on being efficient and thorough. As she approached the mahogany door of the conference room, she heard laughter echoing from inside. Emma paused, recognizing Jonathan's deep voice mixed with the familiar tones of his usual circle of wealthy friends who treated his office like their personal lounge. She was about to knock when she heard her own name mentioned. "Come on, Jonathan, you cannot seriously be considering bringing your little assistant to the Crystal Foundation Gala." That was Bradley Morrison, heir to a pharmaceutical empire. She probably buys her clothes from clearance racks and has never tasted real champagne. Her hand froze on the door handle as cruel laughter erupted from the room. "I mean, can you imagine her trying to make conversation with actual important people," added Veronica Ashford, whose family owned a chain of luxury hotels across the country. "She would probably use the wrong fork and spill wine all over herself. The photographers would have an absolute field day." Emma felt her chest tighten as she pressed herself against the wall beside the door, unable to move forward or retreat. Through the narrow gap, she could see Jonathan leaning back in his leather chair, his perfectly tailored charcoal suit catching the soft light. His dark blonde hair was styled impeccably, and those piercing gray eyes that she had once thought held kindness now sparkled with cruel amusement. "You know what would be absolutely hilarious," Jonathan said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Watching her try to fit in with people who actually matter. Can you picture her face when she realizes she is completely out of her league?" "Do it," urged Cameron Hughes, whose real estate development company owned half the downtown skyline. "Invite her as your date. We can all place bets on how long it takes before she embarrasses herself completely." "Fine," Jonathan replied, standing up and adjusting his platinum cufflinks. "I will invite Emma Torres to be my date to the most exclusive charity event of the season. But we all know this ends with her making some pathetic excuse about why she cannot attend." "And if she actually shows up?" Veronica asked eagerly, her voice bright with anticipation. "Then we all get front row seats to watching her realize she does not belong anywhere near our world," Jonathan said coldly. "It will teach her to remember her place." The group exploded into laughter again, and Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. She had worked for Jonathan Blake for a year and a half, managing his impossible schedule, handling difficult clients, organizing his business travel, and somehow keeping his chaotic professional life running smoothly. She had put in 12-hour days without complaint, worked weekends when necessary, and always maintained perfect professionalism despite his demanding nature. She had even developed a small crush on him, foolishly believing that beneath his arrogant exterior there might be a decent human being. She had noticed the way he worked late on projects he was passionate about, the quiet donations he made to children's charities without seeking publicity, the brief moments of vulnerability when he thought no one was watching. But now she understood the truth. To Jonathan Blake and his circle of privilege, she was nothing more than entertainment. A poor girl from the wrong neighborhood who dared to work in their gleaming tower, someone they could use for amusement whenever they got bored. "I have got 10,000 that says she does not show up at all," Bradley announced, pulling out his phone. "She knows she would be completely humiliated." "Make it 20,000, Cameron added. "There is no way she has the courage to walk into that ballroom knowing everyone there is better than her." Emma's heart pounded so violently she thought it might burst through her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run back to her desk, grab her purse, and never return to this building. She wanted to disappear, to never face the humiliation of seeing these people again. But something stopped her. A fierce pride inherited from her grandmother Rosa, who had immigrated to America with nothing and built a life through sheer determination. Rosa was in the hospital now, fighting pneumonia at 78 years old, and Emma was working extra hours to help cover the medical bills that insurance would not pay. Rosa had always told her that dignity was something no one could take from you unless you gave it away. That your worth as a human being had nothing to do with the size of your bank account. Emma straightened her shoulders, smoothed down her simple navy dress, and knocked firmly on the conference room door. "Come in," Jonathan called, his voice instantly shifting to its usual professional tone. Emma entered the room with her head held high, keeping her expression carefully neutral despite the fire burning in her chest. She was wearing her standard work outfit, a modest navy blue dress with a simple silver necklace, her dark brown hair pulled back in a neat bun, minimal makeup highlighting her warm olive skin. She knew she was not glamorous like the women in this room, but she also knew she was intelligent, hardworking, and deserving of basic human respect. "The quarterly financial reports you requested, Mr. Blake," she said quietly, placing the folder on the conference table. Her voice was steady, giving no indication that she had overheard their entire conversation. Jonathan studied her with those calculating gray eyes, and she could see the wheels turning in his mind. The room fell silent as his friends leaned forward slightly, barely containing their excitement for the show they were about to witness. "Actually, Emma, I have something to ask you," Jonathan said casually, as if discussing the weather. "The Crystal Foundation Gala is this Saturday evening. It is a very important event for the company's image and community relations. I need a date, and I was wondering if you would accompany me." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. She looked around the room at the smirking faces of Jonathan's friends, then back at him. She knew this was a setup, a cruel joke designed to humiliate her for their entertainment. Every rational thought told her to decline politely and preserve what dignity she had left. But then she thought about her grandmother Rosa lying in that hospital bed, telling her never to let anyone make her feel small. She thought about Rosa's words. "Baby, you are just as good as anybody else walking this earth. Do not you ever forget that, no matter how much money they have." "I would be honored to attend with you, Mr. Blake," Emma said, her voice clear and strong. "What time should I be ready?" The surprise on Jonathan's face was quickly replaced by that cruel smile. "The car will pick you up at 7. It is black tie, of course. Very formal, very exclusive. The guest list includes senators, business leaders, and the wealthiest families in the country." "I understand," Emma replied calmly. "Is there anything else you need from me today?" "No, that is all. You can go." Emma nodded and turned to leave, feeling their eyes boring into her back as she walked out of the room. The moment the door closed behind her, she heard the explosion of laughter and excited chatter. "Oh my goodness, she actually said yes. This is going to be incredible. I cannot wait to see what discount store outfit she shows up wearing." Emma walked back to her desk on trembling legs, her mind spinning from what had just happened. She sat down in her chair and stared at her computer screen, the numbers and letters blurring together as tears threatened to spill. She had just agreed to attend the most exclusive social event of the year with a man who saw her as nothing more than a joke for his cruel friends. She had 3 days to figure out how to walk into a room full of millionaires and billionaires without completely humiliating herself. But even as fear and doubt crept into her mind, that stubborn pride burned brighter. Jonathan Blake and his friends expected her to fail, expected her to prove that she did not belong in their world. They were counting on her to be the joke they could laugh about for months. Well, Emma Torres had news for them. She might not have been born with wealth and privilege, but she was smart, she was strong, and she was about to show them exactly what they had underestimated. She picked up her phone and called her best friend Nicole Chen, who worked as an assistant designer at a fashion house in the garment district. "Nicole," Emma said when her friend answered. "I need your help with something important. How much do you know about making someone look like they belong at a billionaire's charity gala?" There was a pause on the other end. "Emma, what have you gotten yourself into?" "Something either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both. Can you help me?" Nicole sighed, but Emma could hear the smile in her voice. "You know I can. Come over tonight after work. We have got 3 days to pull off a miracle, and lucky for you, I happen to specialize in miracles. After hanging up, Emma sat in the quiet office and made a decision. She was going to attend that gala, and she was going to do more than just show up. She was going to prove that worth had nothing to do with the circumstances of your birth and everything to do with the content of your character. She opened a notebook and began making lists. What she would need, how much it would cost, and most importantly, how she would conduct herself once she walked into that ballroom. This was not just about a dress and makeup. This was about preparing for the performance of her life. She had 3 days to transform herself from Jonathan Blake's overlooked assistant into a woman who could command respect in any room. It seemed impossible, but as her grandmother Rosa always said, impossible is just another word for something nobody has tried hard enough to accomplish yet. The game had begun, and Emma Torres was playing to win. She would show Jonathan Blake and his cruel friends that they had made a serious mistake. They thought they knew her, thought they could predict her, thought they could use her for entertainment. They had no idea what was coming. Emma stood in front of the full-length mirror in Nicole's apartment, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The transformation had taken 3 intensive days of preparation, and the results exceeded anything she had imagined possible. "Girl, you look absolutely breathtaking," Nicole said, her voice thick with emotion. "I am so proud of you right now." The dress was a masterpiece of deep sapphire blue silk that hugged Emma's curves in all the right places before flowing into an elegant floor-length skirt. Nicole had found it at an upscale consignment boutique in Soho, a designer gown that had been worn once by a socialite and then donated. The rich blue color made Emma's olive skin glow and brought out the golden flecks in her dark brown eyes. "Are you absolutely sure about these shoes?" Emma asked, wobbling slightly in the 4-inch heels that added dramatic height to her petite frame. "Trust me, once you get the rhythm down, you will glide across that floor like you own the place," Nicole said, kneeling to adjust the delicate straps. "Remember what we practiced. Small steps, weight forward on your toes, engage your core, and keep your chin up." The past 3 days had been an exhausting whirlwind of preparation that had drained Emma's modest savings but had transformed her confidence completely. Nicole had called in favors from contacts throughout the fashion industry, finding a talented hairstylist who specialized in creating elegant updos that showcased Emma's natural beauty. They had decided to embrace Emma's naturally wavy dark hair rather than straightening it, creating a sophisticated side-swept style with soft curls cascading over one shoulder. Small crystal pins caught the light like stars, adding just enough sparkle without being excessive. The makeup had been another revelation. Instead of hiding her natural features, the artist had enhanced them using warm tones that complemented her skin and dramatic techniques that made her eyes appear larger and more expressive. The result was sophisticated and striking without crossing into overdone territory. "Now let us practice the walk one more time," Nicole said, pulling out her phone to record. "Remember, you are not just wearing the dress. You are commanding attention." Emma took a deep breath and began walking across Nicole's living room, focusing on everything they had practiced. Shoulders back, chin lifted, small confident steps that made the silk dress flow around her legs like water. She had spent hours the previous 2 nights practicing in her small apartment, learning to move gracefully in heels and formal attire. "Absolutely perfect," Nicole clapped enthusiastically. "Now let us review the conversation topics we discussed." They had spent Tuesday evening researching the Crystal Foundation, studying current events that might arise in conversation, and reviewing basic etiquette for formal charity galas. Emma had always been well-read and naturally intelligent, but she wanted to be thoroughly prepared for any topic that might come up. "The Crystal Foundation focuses on healthcare access for underserved communities," Emma recited from memory. "They have funded over 30 clinics in low-income neighborhoods and provided free medical care to thousands of families." "Excellent. And if someone asks about your background, I am currently pursuing my graduate degree in business administration while working in corporate strategy and development. I am passionate about healthcare equity and economic opportunity initiatives." It was all completely true, even if it was not the entire story. Nicole nodded approvingly. "You do not have to lie about who you are, but you also do not owe anyone your complete life story. Let them make their assumptions and just be yourself. Intelligent, articulate, confident, and genuine, the jewelry had been the final challenge. Nicole had borrowed pieces from a colleague who worked at an exclusive jewelry boutique, elegant sapphire drop earrings and a delicate silver necklace with a single teardrop diamond that caught the light beautifully without being too flashy. Remember, less is always more with accessories, Nicole had explained. You want to look elegant and wealthy, not like you are trying too hard to impress anyone. On Wednesday, they had tackled the practical details. Emma had purchased a small silver clutch that matched her shoes perfectly and practiced carrying it gracefully while walking and maintaining conversation. They had researched the venue extensively, studied photographs from previous galas, and even watched online videos about formal dining etiquette. If you are not sure which fork to use, just watch what everyone else does first, Nicole had advised. And if someone tries to make you uncomfortable, respond with kindness and grace. The more poised you remain, the worse they will look. Now standing in Nicole's apartment on Saturday evening, Emma felt like she was looking at a completely different person. The woman in the mirror was elegant, sophisticated, confident, and powerful. Someone who clearly belonged in ballrooms and boardrooms. Someone who commanded respect simply by existing. But underneath the stunning exterior, she was still the same person who had grown up in a modest apartment with her mother and grandmother, who had worked 2 jobs while attending community college, who had earned every opportunity through pure determination and hard work. The dress and makeup were simply the costume for the role she was about to play tonight. I am terrified, Emma admitted quietly. What if I embarrass myself? What if everyone immediately sees that I do not belong there? Nicole took both her hands firmly. Listen to me very carefully, Emma Torres. You belong anywhere you choose to be. You are brilliant, compassionate, hardworking, and beautiful inside and out. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. But what if Jonathan's friends are as cruel in person as they were in that conference room? Then you will handle them with the same grace and dignity you have shown in every challenge life has thrown at you. And if they cannot see how incredible you are, that is their failure, not yours. Emma looked at herself in the mirror one final time, taking in the complete transformation. Tomorrow night, she would walk into one of the most exclusive events in the city on the arm of a billionaire CEO who had invited her as entertainment for his wealthy friends. She would be surrounded by people who had more money in their bank accounts than she would earn in a lifetime, wearing clothes that cost more than her annual rent. But she would not be going as Jonathan Blake's amusing assistant who did not know her place. She would be going as herself, a woman who had earned her position in the world through intelligence, perseverance, and unwavering determination. A woman who absolutely refused to be anyone's punchline or source of entertainment. I am ready, she said, her voice stronger and more confident than she felt inside. You are more than ready, Nicole replied with a proud smile. You are going to show them exactly what they have been too blind to see. As they carefully packed the dress and accessories for the following evening, Emma felt a strange mixture of excitement and absolute terror coursing through her veins. She had no idea what the night would bring, what challenges she would face, or how Jonathan would react when he saw her. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was going to face whatever came with dignity, grace, and the unshakable knowledge that she was worthy of respect regardless of her bank account balance. The joke was about to backfire spectacularly on Jonathan Blake and his cruel friends, because they had seriously and completely underestimated Emma Torres. The sleek black limousine pulled up to the Grand Millennium Hotel at exactly 7:45, fashionably late as Nicole had instructed. Emma had learned from her research that arriving slightly after the official start time was considered sophisticated among the wealthy elite, and she wanted her entrance to be memorable. Inside the car, she checked her reflection one final time in the small compact mirror, her hand surprisingly steady despite the butterflies dancing in her stomach. The sapphire blue dress looked even more stunning in the evening light, and her hair and makeup had held up perfectly during the drive from her apartment in Queens. You can do this, she whispered to herself, repeating the affirmation Nicole had taught her. You absolutely belong here. The driver opened her door with professional courtesy, and Emma stepped out onto the red carpet leading to the hotel entrance. The cool evening air felt refreshing against her skin, and she paused for just a moment to take in the scene before her. Photographers lined both sides of the walkway, capturing images of celebrities, politicians, and wealthy socialites as they arrived for the charity gala. She had expected to feel completely intimidated by the spectacle, but instead she felt an unexpected sense of calm settle over her. All the preparation had been worth every exhausting minute. The doorman, impressive in his formal burgundy uniform, held open the heavy glass doors with a respectful nod. "Good evening, miss. Welcome to the Grand Millennium." "Thank you," Emma replied with a warm smile, her voice carrying the confidence she had been practicing all week. The lobby was absolutely breathtaking, all polished marble and sparkling crystal chandeliers, filled with elegantly dressed people holding champagne flutes and engaging in animated conversations. Emma recognized several faces from news broadcasts and magazine covers. Actors, business tycoons, and influential politicians all mingling together in this exclusive atmosphere. She made her way toward the ballroom entrance where a woman with an electronic tablet was checking names against the guest list. "Good evening. I am here with the Blake party," Emma said smoothly, her tone professional but friendly. The woman scanned her screen and smiled warmly. "Of course, Miss Torres. Mr. Blake is already inside. Please go right ahead." Emma thanked her and took one deep breath before walking through the ornate double doors into the ballroom. The sight that greeted her was absolutely magnificent. Enormous crystal chandeliers cast warm golden light over hundreds of elegantly dressed guests, while a full orchestra played soft classical music in the corner. The walls were draped in rich cream fabric with gold accents, and centerpieces of white orchids and roses adorned every table. But it was not the opulent decorations that made her pause mid-step. It was the sudden hush that fell over the nearest section of the room as she entered. Conversation stopped abruptly. Heads turned in her direction. Eyes widened with unmistakable surprise and admiration. For what felt like an eternity but was probably only seconds, Emma felt like time had slowed to a crawl as she walked deeper into the ballroom. Her heels clicked softly against the polished marble floor, the sapphire silk flowing around her legs like liquid moonlight. She spotted Jonathan almost immediately. He was standing near the bar with his usual circle of friends, wearing an impeccably tailored black tuxedo that emphasized his tall athletic build and broad shoulders. His dark blonde hair was perfectly styled, and even from across the crowded room, she could see those sharp gray eyes that had looked at her with such cold calculation just 3 days earlier. But now those same eyes were absolutely wide with shock. Jonathan's champagne glass froze halfway to his lips as he stared at her in complete disbelief. His mouth actually fell open slightly, and Emma had to suppress a smile of pure satisfaction at his reaction. Bradley, Cameron, and Veronica were equally stunned, their faces showing expressions that ranged from disbelief to something that looked suspiciously like panic. Emma began walking directly toward them, her movements graceful and confident. She had practiced this walk hundreds of times in her apartment, but now with all eyes following her progress across the room, it felt completely natural and effortless. The sapphire silk caught the light with every step, and the soft golden glow made her skin seem to radiate from within. "Oh my goodness, who is that woman?" she heard someone whisper as she passed a group of older women dripping in diamonds. "She is absolutely gorgeous," came another admiring voice. "I have never seen her at any of these events before." More heads continued turning as she made her way across the expansive ballroom. Men straightened their bow ties and smoothed their hair while women studied her dress and jewelry with expressions mixing curiosity with obvious envy. Emma kept her chin up and shoulders back, channeling every single lesson Nicole had drilled into her about confidence and presence. She was about 20 feet away from Jonathan's group when she saw Veronica grab his arm urgently and whisper something in his ear. Whatever she said seemed to snap Jonathan out of his shocked trance, and he quickly set down his champagne glass before walking toward Emma. They met in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by curious onlookers but speaking in voices only they could hear clearly. "Emma," Jonathan's voice was barely above a whisper, as if he genuinely could not believe what his eyes were seeing. "Is that really you?" "Good evening, Jonathan," she replied calmly, her tone polite but maintaining careful distance. "Thank you for inviting me this evening. This is quite an impressive event you are hosting." He stood there for another long moment, simply staring at her with an expression she could not quite read. Up close, she could see genuine confusion and something else flickering in his gray eyes. Was that actually guilt? "You look," he started, then stopped and shook his head slowly. "I mean, you are absolutely stunning. I barely recognized you walking in." "Well, you did specify black tie formal," Emma replied with a slight smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "I wanted to make certain I dressed appropriately for the occasion." The orchestra transitioned to a slower waltz, and couples began moving gracefully onto the polished dance floor. Jonathan seemed to gather himself and extended his arm toward her. "Would you like to dance?" Emma considered refusing for a brief moment. Part of her wanted to maintain her distance and make him work much harder for even basic courtesy. But she had come here tonight with a specific purpose, and that purpose required her to play the part of his date convincingly. "I would be delighted," she said, placing her hand lightly on his offered arm. As they walked onto the dance floor together, Emma was acutely aware of the whispers and stares following their every move. She could see Jonathan's friends watching intently from the bar, their expressions no longer amused but definitely worried. Veronica in particular looked like she had just swallowed something incredibly bitter. Jonathan placed one hand respectfully on Emma's waist and took her other hand in his, pulling her into the traditional waltz position. She had watched countless online videos to learn the basic steps, but she had never actually danced with a real partner before tonight. "Just follow my lead," Jonathan said softly, seeming to sense her slight nervousness. The first few steps were somewhat tentative, but Emma quickly found the rhythm and flow. Jonathan was clearly an excellent and experienced dancer, smooth and confident in his movements, and he guided her across the floor with practiced ease. After a few moments, she began to relax slightly and actually enjoy the experience. "You dance beautifully," he said, his voice noticeably warmer than she had expected. "Thank you. You are quite skilled yourself." They danced in surprisingly comfortable silence for a while, moving together as if they had been partners for years instead of this being their first dance ever. Emma found herself getting momentarily lost in the music and the moment, almost forgetting the cruel circumstances that had brought them together tonight. But then she caught sight of Veronica's furious expression across the room and remembered exactly why she was really here. "Your friends seem quite surprised to see me," she said, her voice carefully neutral and controlled. Jonathan's jaw visibly tightened. "They are not accustomed to seeing someone as elegant and sophisticated as you at these events." It was a diplomatic answer, carefully worded, but Emma knew the real truth. She had heard their cruel laughter and their bets on her certain failure. She knew they had expected her to either not show up at all or arrive looking completely awkward and out of place. Instead, she had walked into their exclusive world looking like she had been born to it, and the reaction had clearly thrown them completely off balance. "Well," she said, her smile becoming slightly more genuine. "I am glad I could exceed their expectations so thoroughly." As the song ended, Jonathan led Emma off the dance floor toward his group of friends. Emma steeled herself internally for whatever cruel comments or backhanded compliments they might have prepared during her dance with Jonathan. But as they approached, she noticed something interesting and unexpected. Bradley, Cameron, and Veronica all looked genuinely nervous, as if they were not quite sure how to handle this dramatic turn of events. "Everyone," Jonathan said, his voice carrying an unmistakable note of pride that surprised Emma. "I would like you to properly meet Emma Torres." Bradley stepped forward first, his usual arrogant smirk replaced by a more respectful and cautious expression. "Emma, you look absolutely incredible tonight. I do not think we have been formally introduced. I am Bradley Morrison." "It is nice to meet you, Bradley," Emma replied graciously, shaking his extended hand with perfect poise. Cameron and Veronica followed suit quickly, both offering polite but strained greetings. Emma could see the obvious confusion in their eyes and body language. This was definitely not the entertainment they had been gleefully expecting. "So Emma," Veronica said, her voice artificially sweet but with an edge underneath. "Jonathan mentioned you work together. What exactly is it that you do?" It was clearly a loaded question, deliberately designed to expose her as merely an assistant. But Emma was thoroughly prepared for exactly this type of probe. "I work in corporate strategy and business development," she replied smoothly and confidently. "It is quite challenging work, but I find it genuinely rewarding to help build successful enterprises and sustainable growth models." It was technically accurate and strategically vague enough to let them draw their own conclusions without her actually lying. "How fascinating," Veronica said, her smile becoming increasingly forced. "And where did you find that absolutely gorgeous dress? It looks like something straight from a Paris runway." Another obvious trap, but Emma navigated it expertly and effortlessly. "Thank you so much. I truly believe that genuine style is much more about how you carry yourself with confidence than about designer labels, would you not agree?" Before Veronica could formulate a response, a distinguished older gentleman with silver hair approached their group purposefully. Emma immediately recognized him from her extensive research as Senator Phillips, one of the most influential politicians in the state. "Jonathan, wonderful to see you again," the senator said warmly, shaking hands firmly. "And who is this absolutely lovely young woman?" "Senator Phillips, I would like you to meet Emma Torres," Jonathan said smoothly. "Emma, this is Senator Phillips, one of the primary sponsors of tonight's charity event." "It is truly an honor to meet you, Senator," Emma said sincerely, offering her hand with perfect confidence. "I have followed your healthcare reform work with great interest and admiration." The senator's eyebrows rose with genuine surprise and pleasure. "You are familiar with my healthcare initiatives?" "Of course," Emma replied warmly. "Your proposed legislation to expand community health clinic funding in underserved areas represents exactly the kind of forward-thinking policy we desperately need. The research clearly demonstrates that early intervention and preventive care access provides the highest return in terms of both health outcomes and long-term cost reduction." Emma had done exhaustive homework, and it showed impressively. The senator's face lit up with authentic enthusiasm as he launched into a detailed and passionate discussion of his legislative priorities and goals. Within just minutes, they were engaged in a sophisticated conversation about healthcare policy, economic disparities, and social justice that left Jonathan's wealthy friend standing awkwardly and uselessly on the sidelines. As the evening progressed steadily, Emma found herself moving through the crowded room with increasing confidence and ease. She spoke knowledgeably with corporate executives about emerging market trends, discussed contemporary art intelligently with serious collectors, and charmed influential politicians with her genuine insights into pressing social issues. Every single conversation reinforced the carefully crafted image she had built of an intelligent, articulate, sophisticated woman who clearly belonged in these elite circles. Jonathan stayed close by her side throughout the entire evening, and she began noticing a significant change in his behavior and demeanor. The arrogant smirk had completely disappeared, replaced by something that genuinely looked like sincere admiration and respect. He watched her handle each social interaction with visible growing appreciation, and when he introduced her to other distinguished guests, there was unmistakable pride in his voice. But the real test came during dinner when they took their assigned seats at one of the premium tables near the front of the elegant ballroom. Emma found herself seated between Jonathan and a prominent venture capitalist, facing directly across from Veronica, who had clearly maneuvered deliberately to get a seat where she could observe Emma's every single move. The first course was served with impeccable presentation, and Emma silently thanked Nicole for all those detailed etiquette lessons. She knew exactly which utensils to use, how to make engaging conversation while eating gracefully, and how to handle the formal multi-course dining experience with perfect poise. During the main course, Veronica leaned forward with that artificial smile Emma was beginning to recognize as a clear warning sign. "So Emma," she said, her voice carrying just loud enough for their entire table to hear clearly. "Since you work so closely with Jonathan, you must know all his little secrets and habits. What is he really like when nobody important is watching? It was another trap, an attempt to get Emma to say something unprofessional or inappropriate that would embarrass both of them. But Emma saw it coming from miles away. Jonathan is an exceptionally dedicated professional who cares deeply about his work and its impact, she replied smoothly. I have great respect for his commitment to excellence and his genuine desire to create meaningful positive change through business innovation. It was perfectly diplomatic while also subtly repositioning Jonathan as someone admirable rather than the shallow person Veronica was trying to imply. As dessert was being served, a commotion near the ballroom entrance drew everyone's attention. A striking woman with platinum blonde hair in an elegant black gown was making her way through the crowd, and Emma noticed Jonathan stiffen noticeably beside her. "Oh, wonderful," Veronica said with barely concealed glee. "Christina is here. This evening just became so much more interesting." Emma watched as the blonde woman approached their table with purposeful strides and calculating eyes. This had to be Christina Vanderbilt, Jonathan's former girlfriend and daughter of a powerful media mogul. Emma had read about their very public breakup 6 months ago. "Jonathan," Christina said in a voice like honey mixed with poison. "I heard you were here tonight. And this must be your mysterious new companion everyone is talking about." "Christina," Jonathan replied carefully, his voice guarded. "I did not realize you would be attending." "Last-minute decision, darling," Christina said, her eyes never leaving Emma's face. "Daddy thought it would be excellent publicity. And you must be Emma. I must say, you have caused quite a sensation this evening. Nobody seems to know anything about you." It was a direct challenge, an attempt to expose Emma as an outsider who did not belong. Before Emma could respond, Veronica jumped in eagerly. "We were just discussing Emma's background," Veronica said with false sweetness. "She works very closely with Jonathan, though the exact nature of their relationship seems rather unclear to everyone." Emma felt the trap closing around her, these women working together to publicly humiliate her. The entire table had fallen silent, everyone watching to see how she would respond to this coordinated attack. But Emma had not come this far to crumble under pressure now. She stood up slowly and gracefully, drawing every eye in the surrounding area to her. The sapphire dress caught the light magnificently as she moved, and her voice when she spoke was clear, strong, and filled with quiet dignity. "You are absolutely right, Veronica. Let me clarify things for everyone here tonight," Emma said calmly. "I am Jonathan's executive assistant. I manage his schedule, handle his correspondence, coordinate his business travel, and help keep his professional life running smoothly. I grew up in Queens with my mother and grandmother. I worked 2 jobs while putting myself through community college. I am currently pursuing my graduate degree at night while working full-time during the day. I shop at regular stores, I take the subway to work every morning, and until 3 days ago, I had never owned anything remotely as expensive as this dress I am wearing tonight." The ballroom had grown increasingly quiet as people at nearby tables turned to listen to her words. "Jonathan invited me to this event, and I accepted his invitation knowing full well that some people here tonight would look down on me because of where I come from and how much money I have in my bank account. And you know what I have learned this evening? That worth has absolutely nothing to do with your family name, your bank balance, or which exclusive social circles you belong to. True worth comes from how you treat other people, especially those who cannot do anything for you in return. It comes from working hard, treating others with respect and dignity, and trying to make the world slightly better than you found it." She looked directly at Veronica and Christina, her voice gentle but absolutely firm. "I do not need to pretend to be something I am not or apologize for where I come from. I am proud of my background, proud of my family, and proud of everything I have accomplished through hard work and determination. And if that makes me unsuitable for your exclusive world, then perhaps your world needs to reconsider what it actually values." The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. Then, slowly, someone began clapping. It was Senator Phillips, standing at his nearby table with tears actually visible in his eyes. Within seconds, others joined in until half the ballroom was applauding Emma's words. Jonathan stood up beside her, his face showing a mixture of emotions she could not fully read. "Emma, I need to tell you something," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "I heard every word you just said, and you are absolutely right about everything. But there is something you need to know about why I really invited you tonight." Emma turned to face him fully, her heart pounding but her expression calm. "I already know, Jonathan. I heard you and your friends in the conference room on Tuesday. I know this was supposed to be a joke, entertainment for your wealthy circle. I came anyway because I refuse to let your cruelty define my worth." Jonathan's face went pale. "Emma, I am so incredibly sorry. There are no words to express how ashamed I am of my behavior. You have shown me tonight what real class and dignity actually look like, and it has nothing to do with money or social status. You are extraordinary, and I have been blind and stupid for 18 months. He turned to address the entire ballroom, his voice carrying clearly in the hushed space. "I need to make a public confession. I invited Emma to this event as a cruel joke because my friends and I thought it would be entertaining to watch her struggle in our world. We bet money on whether she would even show up. We mocked her and planned to humiliate her. But she came anyway, and she has proven to be more intelligent, more graceful, more genuinely good than anyone else in this entire room. The joke was on me, and I could not be more grateful for the lesson she has taught me tonight." He looked directly at Emma, his gray eyes shining with unshed tears. "Emma Torres, you are the most remarkable person I have ever met. I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I am asking for the chance to earn your respect. Not as your boss, but as someone who genuinely wants to know the incredible woman I have been too blind to see." Emma stood there for a long moment, looking at Jonathan's sincere expression, then at the faces around the ballroom. She saw judgment in some eyes, admiration in others, but mostly she saw recognition. Recognition that something important had shifted in this exclusive space tonight. "Jonathan," she said finally, her voice gentle but firm. "I accept your apology. But respect and trust are not given freely. They must be earned through consistent actions over time, not through one emotional speech. If you truly mean what you are saying, then prove it through how you treat not just me, but everyone who works for you and everyone you encounter who has less power and privilege than you do." She turned to address the entire gathering one final time. "To everyone here tonight, thank you for this experience. It has taught me that I belong anywhere I choose to be, and that my value comes from within, not from your approval or acceptance. I hope some of you will remember that the next time you encounter someone you assume does not belong in your world." With that, Emma gathered her clutch and began walking toward the exit with her head held impossibly high. But before she reached the doors, Jonathan caught up to her gently. "Please do not leave," he said quietly. "Not like this. Give me one chance to show you that I can be better. Dance with me one more time, not as boss and assistant, not as some cruel joke, but as two people who are just beginning to actually see each other clearly." Emma studied his face carefully, searching for any sign of deception or manipulation. But all she saw was genuine remorse and something that might actually be the beginning of real respect. "One dance," she agreed finally. "But after that, I am going home. We can discuss what happens next on Monday during normal business hours." They returned to the dance floor as the orchestra began playing a beautiful slow waltz. This time, as they moved together, everything felt different. The masks had fallen away, the cruel game had ended, and what remained was simply two people beginning to see each other as fully human. "You really are extraordinary," Jonathan whispered as they danced. "I am so sorry it took me this long to recognize that." "The question is not whether you recognize it now," Emma replied softly. "The question is whether you will remember it on Monday morning when I am back to being your assistant and you are back to being the powerful CEO." "I will remember," he promised. "Every single day, I will remember what you taught me tonight." As the song ended and Emma prepared to leave, she realized that she had accomplished everything she came here to do. She had proven that she belonged anywhere she chose to be. She had stood up for her dignity and worth. She had taught powerful people an important lesson about respect and humanity. Whether anything would actually change between her and Jonathan remained to be seen. But regardless of what happened next, Emma Torres knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would never again let anyone make her feel small or unworthy. She had found her voice, claimed her power, and proven to herself that she was extraordinary exactly as she was. And that was worth more than all the wealth in that ballroom combined.